Hi and welcome. I'm Iris Benrubi, your host, and today we are on the Build Relationships in Isolation. And the reason that I decided to do this is that one of the things that we know, but the number one key to success, both in our personal life and in business and work, is relationships. So the quality of your relationships will dictate the quality of the rest of your life. Now, you can't get them all perfect, meaning that you can't control other people, but it's really about learning the skills on how to show up the best that you can be to create the best kind of relationships with the right people that mesh with you. So today I'm really excited because I've got Kate Crow on the call. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. So could you tell our audience a little bit about you?
I am an empowerment coach, and I work with people who to sort of guide people towards their highest self. What does that look like? Well, it's helping them to feel good about their lives, as well as helping them to achieve the things that they want in their life.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey that's taken you to get here to where you are now?
Well, I would say that um, I came into I sort of fell into coaching at when almost 20 years ago, when I was leaving my marriage, and what I found was within probably 2 sessions of working with someone, I realized like, oh, this is. It was like instant recognition, and I realized that this was something I wanted to start doing. And so I began to get coached, and worked with that particular outfit for about 7 years, and then had a big a big curveball from the left in my life, where my son, his schizophrenia bloomed, and he also committed a crime and was uh, taken into the system. Around the same time, I was in a relationship. I was single. I fell in love with somebody, and 13 months later, he died. And so I had these two people in my life. So just as I was beginning to go out on my own as a coach, two major things happened that caused me to really think about, how do I find my power when I don't actually feel like I have any? When life is happening very much to me, or that was my experience, that these two people who were really important to me, um, were one was in the throes of mental illness, and the other was dying. So a large part of Shift It came out of my own need to shift, and that's what I help people do, is to shift how they're experiencing their life, which is somewhat the topic today, which is so perfect, is that many of our listeners and so many people in the world are getting squeezed by life, and feeling a lot of isolation and grief. And it's interesting to me that that the coronavirus really hits the lungs, which is symbolic of where we hold our grief. And I think that there's so that we're really talking about that collective sensation of loss that can actually open up into a sense of loneliness. And so our topic was really about, how do we connect, how do we cope, and how do we cultivate a new experience when life is squeezing us, is what I call the lemon squeeze of, like, how do we make the lemonade out of what's happening.
Great.
So
I was going to say, let's jump right into it, because
yeah.
with the coronavirus, and as we're experiencing, borders are closing. At least here where I live, the restaurants are closing. There's nothing open other than gas stations and grocery stores. Many people are under quarantine if they've come from out of the country. People are feeling stir crazy. If we go to the park, we stand about 12 feet away from each other. So there's the old normal of connecting and saying hello and shaking hands and maybe hugging and seeing family. All of that's disappeared. So, what is, and I'm going to kind of lead this question, but what's the gift in this? What's the opportunity
Mhm.
for us?
Well, I think one is to see how important connection is,
Mm.
right? And to, for those of us who are perhaps where life was taking over, I think it's very interesting that we come from a culture of doing. And for the most part, it was, things have been getting more, or, producing, energy out, doing. And what the virus is happening, it's like collectively making us get still and to really be with ourselves as well as with other people. So I think that the opportunity of it is to be able to see that we we get to really look at what's important to us. What is, for many of us, there's been a big slowdown, and there's connecting with people online in a forum like this, or an online meditation class, or an online yoga class, or and I don't know if any of you have done that, but wow, I feel like such a big hug in that way. And it's interesting because it's stretchy. Like we just had, what, 15 minutes of like total technological breakdown, and but pushing through that, and that stretchy part of now being all together, we still get to be in this virtual community. And I think the opportunity is to really see, one, what really matters, and to notice the ways that self-care actually is mattering, for a lot of people in their doing this.
Let me jump in here because I think what you said is so important is that we've had a normal, and I can talk from like my house. My partner teaches running 3 times a week, and my son goes to hockey twice a week. And so meals are all scattered, right? Where everybody can fit, but generally not everyone together. We've been having every meal together. His girlfriend moved in for 5 days with her daughter, extenuating circumstances. We had a family of 5 for every meal. For me, it was such a gift because trying to manage everyone's schedule and mine, and we lose that opportunity when we're in normal life, what you called I guess our normal, what we got used to, the whole doing thing. And I'm really experiencing the experience of family even deeper than I've had that. So
Yeah, and for those people who are living on their own, um, I think that there's a piece here where I think setting a goal for yourself to reach out, and to either through text or email, but also pick up the phone and say, "Hey, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a long time," or and taking the time to reach out, um, to 2 or 3 people a day, to just say, "Hey, I'm thinking of you," and having that sense of connectedness there. So I think it's I this sense of loneliness, this sense, it's real. The virus has brought us all inward, such that we're spending time with less people or no people, or in your case it was more people. But I'm living with my daughter and her husband, and learning, just appreciating that. But I think the gift of it is being able to find what is right in this situation. It's true. And I really wanted to make a point about this, that if people are in grief, or if people are feeling a loss, we want to acknowledge that, and not just try to banish it or push it aside, but also to let the feelings be there. For me, one of the big things that I've recently learned, which I find it amusing, is that those dark feelings actually don't kill us. They do make us stronger, and they do move us to a different place. So I think that's one point to make, is it's good to acknowledge that you're feeling, and that what you're feeling, And then the second part is to look for what is right about that. Like, is there a place that you're strengthening your sense of yourself in a new way? Are you living in gratitude in a new way? Are you practicing something creatively? Because in the loss, what we're all getting challenged to do is to be more flexible and to be more creative.
Yeah. And I was going to say, what I like about what you just said is we all have a range of emotions that we're willing to feel. And this coronavirus has all kinds of stuff come up for us that either we don't allow ourselves, or we haven't stepped into that range, or you grew up in a family where you don't feel sorry for yourself, you don't feel sadness, you don't feel joy, whatever it is that you grew up with in your family. I can tell you, for me, yesterday morning, my partner's son called us and said, I'd like to offer to go buy you groceries. Right away, I went into panic. It was like, oh my God, are we that old that we can't get our own groceries? Are we that frail? And I had to stop for a moment and go, hang on, what changed from 2 minutes ago was that I allowed my power to go over to these words and created a whole story about it that wasn't really true. Right. And so I want to come back to your point, Kate, is like, I love that you talked about reaching out to other people, because I've spoken with a few of my clients who really feel isolated when they're single, especially when they have a lot of married friends. But I can tell you that what I've been doing is calling all these people that are friends that I don't spend a lot of time calling or talking to. And it's a gift for both of you. Often we kind of wait, like, I don't want to be in a position. They have their family. What do you have to say about that, Kate?
Well, I have to say that uh, when I before I came home, I was down. I was, living in Florida for a couple of months, and I spent a lot of time on my own. And I was doing it for a reason. And I have two friends who were super great, and they invited me to dinner. And so, of course, I had already eaten, but it was super sweet. The two of them had made dinner, and they had they were sitting at their table, and then we FaceTimed. And the whole call didn't take more than 15 minutes, but so I felt so loved to be invited into their evening. And I think that that is something that, whether you're single and you invite somebody to your FaceTime dinner, or your FaceTime, whatever, tea or coffee, it's something I've been thinking with my parents, that's a great way. Or for my son, because he's not he's in quarantine and he's not able to have visitors. When we FaceTime, it's like a big old hug. So that would be one of my recommendations. Is, I know it feels stretchy. We all are being stretched to be in a place to deal with this loss of what was. But we want to, the how do we stay hopeful? You asked me, how do we stay hopeful when things seem to be getting worse? I think it's to look, as Carl Jung used to say, look for the gold in the dark, look for the light, look for what is right about this situation. And you know what? We are all getting asked to change, and our world will be changed. And that might not be such a bad thing. So we've been talking about just like how lovely, whether it's my two friends inviting me for a FaceTime dinner, or you inviting your extended family to come and live with you, or just reaching out to somebody who you haven't talked to in a while, and to really see, like, why haven't I done that? And most of the reasons is because you've been too busy.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah, like this whole slowdown really has us build those relationships, especially when we're in isolation, and doubly more, if that's English, when you're on your own. Have that person next to you. We're lucky. I mean, we had a whole issue with the internet earlier today, but yet we overcame it. And yet the internet can keep you apart, because sometimes it's a place that you can distract. You can play games, you can go FaceTime on, I'm sorry, Facebook, on Instagram. And there's nothing wrong with that, but sometimes it replaces connection. And so
Yeah.
because we have all this internet, we actually have an opportunity to go through Skype or FaceTime or Zoom. There's a free Zoom link you can sign up. You get a 40-minute call. And I think we might address this now, where you get to create more relationships and strengthen them. Let me just ask one of the questions up here, Kate. It's Heather said, I've been dating someone for 3 months. We've isolated from each other 2 weeks ago. How do we keep the relationship going? Absence makes the heart grow fonder versus out of sight, out of mind.
I think, well, I think attitude, it's like I would I would take this as an opportunity to get to know each other through writing or through, different ways. And it may be that you ask each other. I was talking about this with a client. The New York Times had maybe it was a couple years ago even, like, but all these questions that you can ask somebody to as a way to get to know somebody. But I think being able to um, use this time to think outside the box. I think that's what we're all being asked to do, is to think outside the box and to be more creative around the ways that we're experiencing things. I love the Viktor Frankl perspective, which is, if there's a quote that goes something like, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I definitely think that is something to really think about, is how do you want to approach this? And so for Heather, it's like, do the two of you want to make this as something that breaks you apart, or is it something that you want to, like, actually use it to explore ways to get to know each other in a different way?
Yeah, and I love that you addressed it that way. I'm going to share with you something that my son has done with his girlfriend, but before I go there, it's kind of like when my son-in-law called and offered to do the groceries. I actually had to work to push that negativity and that anxiety out by really looking at what are the facts in front of me. I've been buying groceries all this time. I'm healthy. This probably isn't an issue. He was being nice because he's picking up for his own mom. And so we get it, we get to choose. In choice, what Kate was saying is we have power when we feel.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Kate.
No, I think that's absolutely. I think the power to choose is our choice, but I'd even go one step further, which is your self-awareness, to actually stop and question that sense of injury, or that interpretation that you had. And then you could come back at it and start to see, like, if I don't hold it like that, it isn't that. It could just be an act of love, which it certainly sounds like it was an expression of, like, hey, can I be of service to you guys because you matter to me? Wow, that's a beautiful interpretation, versus, oh, I'm getting old and does he think I can't handle this? Like, you see, so it's our attitude really does make a difference. And I know in my own life, I've been in a huge period of, like, really trying to be brave enough to be curious about how am I holding this? Because my interpretations are not always right. So I need to get curious about them. And especially if they're negative ones, to ask myself, is this helping me or hurting me?
Yeah. And that's a great point, because we always make our decisions based on the consequences we're willing to pay, the choice. And so to choose to be in negativity and victimhood has a consequence, but it also has some juice. And
Yeah.
being positive has consequences, and it might also have some juice. So you get to decide, which way do I want to approach this, based on really looking at that you're not trapped and that you don't have no choice. The truth is, if you're in quarantine, you could go out and there's a consequence. And the choice is, if you have a quarantine, you could choose to stay in and there's a consequence. You get to choose both based on your morals, on your own integrity, on your own, what you're willing to pay in order to make a decision. And when you can get your head around that you have choice in every single place, I mean, 99% of the time we have choice as to how we deal with something. We can't make other people change how they behave with us, but we get an opportunity to show up in a way that either, like Kate said, empowers us and moves us forward, or makes us feel stuck, lack of hope, despair, maybe resignation. Kate, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I think well, I think, our it's I think the more we can try to be aware of our blind spots, or just if you're feeling negative, I think that's like the steps I would suggest would be, start to get curious. What is it that I'm feeling and why? Like, to use uh, Iris's great example, her first knee-jerk response was, is this a criticism? Look, we're all human, and that's oftentimes how we hear something, is for initially it can be a negative response. But if you start to ask yourself, is that really true?
Yeah, and I'm going to do just a little shift in here, is that I didn't feel he was criticizing me. It was now a reflection that I'm frail, I'm vulnerable. Oh my God, all this time I thought I'm going to get through this. And all of a sudden somebody's kind of giving me some information that I have turned into, I'm now vulnerable. To really get that that's just simply a story that I created about what you said, Kate, is the facts are he offered an act of kindness. And I
Hmm.
turned around to make it mean like, oh my God, I'm at risk now. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should. What should I do? How do I keep like all that conversation that comes up? And so
Yep.
just coming back to choice, how do I want to approach this? Maybe I'm frail, then I get to choose to stay home. I remember I went for a walk about 10 days ago, and there was an older man with a cane just standing on the side of the sidewalk. I was busy on the phone. I had to answer one of my clients, and he was just waiting there. And I answered it, and he was just waiting there, and I couldn't understand until I passed. I went, oh, COVID, he's keeping himself safe. He feels frail. He was probably in his 80s. He needs to do what he needs to do. But it's a choice. He could have walked close to me. He could have walked the other way. Actually, my son and I went to the pond a couple days ago. Somebody crossed the street as soon as we were coming. They weren't even happy with the 6 feet. Just simply choices. So I'm going to kind of expound on what Kate said is, what's a choice that empowers you? All right. And
Yep.
actually, go ahead, Kate. And then I wanted to add the thing that my son does now.
Um, well, I think that you're. I don't think there's much to add, other than, I just think that the question, just to be aware that we all have some filters that we listen to through. And, you know, if you're not feeling good about something, to just get curious about what's underneath that. And, and then to acknowledge that, oh, that's how I heard it, but that's not necessarily how I have to act on it. And like I said, it's the questions I always go through: is this helping me or hurting me? Is this real, or is it something that, like, is that's not, like, is it a figment of, a wound within me, that's actually not serving the situation. So yeah.
Great. And
And
so
what were you going to say about your
yeah, what my son does now with his girlfriend, because they live in separate homes, is that he said they go get a coffee. And I said, what do you mean? All the coffee shops are closed. He said, what we do is we both go through the drive-through and we get a coffee. We park opposite of each other with social distancing, and they have coffees while they're in the car talking to each other, right? So you start to get creative. In the old days, the men used to court women with letters, and you get to write a letter back, just like Kate was talking about. I strongly suggest not a lot of face-to-face contact, even with social distancing. You don't know who you're meeting. I mean, and this isn't a response to the person who's been dating, but in general, at the beginning, now in these days, I would try to keep everything to either the written medium or a video medium or an audio where you're not at risk. So I want to go back, Kate, to a couple points. One was one of the questions was, how do you not lose hope as you're starting to watch the news and seeing how the world is getting more closed in, more cases, all this kind of fear, the words like pandemic, it creates for some people sometimes this maybe hopelessness. So how do you not get hopeless?
I think it's something that helps me is a true belief that life happens for me, not to me.
Mm.
And I've gone through a lot of situations in my life that have been painful and challenging, and where I've really felt powerless. And you mentioned a word, victim. It's very easy to feel victimized by what's going on because it can all make us feel life can feel too big. But I believe that at the end of this, I believe that we're getting shaken down as a as a as our humanity is getting shaken down. It's like the Mother Earth is like a big bear that has sh- shaken her shoulders, and we're all being asked to look very carefully at our values and what is important to us. And on the other side of this situation, which is dire and scary because of the powerlessness, we're going to have to find our power.
Mm.
And that begins within ourselves. And
Willa has something to say.
Lily's trying to, yes, I have to let her out. But I think that's the main thing is that being able to see this in a much bigger context. And it goes back to our question of what focusing on what is right in these moments and the gifts within them. I've just got to let her out.
Let her out. I'm going to kind of talk about something came up for me. I've been saying that this coronavirus is like when our hard drive on our computer crashes. When we have to get our computer restarted, we need a new hard drive, but we also need to get rid of any viruses that created the crash, and we also need a new operating system. So this is an opportunity for us to get a new operating system. So what is a priority for me? What is it that I've kept putting off all of this time that I'm going to get to? Like one of the things is I've taken a coaching course and I could get certified, and I have everything I need. I just needed to put it on paper. And honestly, with this space that coronavirus has created, it's like I could do the work, and I handed in my certification. I should be certified very shortly in this one system. So you want to start to look at what is the opportunity for me? What have I been putting off? And it could be something about connections. I've been calling all of my friends all around the world. And actually, one more thing, the holidays are coming up. And actually, my sister has been in touch with my cousin in Israel and in France. And we're actually setting up a Zoom call so that we can all have, I mean, they're going to be at dinner, we're going to be at lunch, but we have never done this, be able to be on a Zoom call together to celebrate the holiday. And there's probably 80 of us. I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but it's an opportunity for connection. I love that my sister came up with that idea. So you want to start to ask yourself, what's your opportunity? Who have you been leaving on the back burner? Who would you like to create a relationship, but who would you also like to strengthen a relationship with?
Yeah, I think that's 100% the right way to look at it is what's the opportunity for me now? What's the opportunity to shift my relationship to myself now? Like any project, whether it's, a writing idea, decluttering. Oh my God, you want to feel more in control? Take just a drawer that you haven't been dealing with. That'll help too. But I think it's focusing on what you can control versus what you can't. And there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. And you know what? We're not going to be able to figure that out. And you can worry and worry and worry and worry and worry about it. And most of the time what you're worrying about is stuff that you can't fix right now. So fix what you can. Control what you can. definitely take care of your own health by doing some movement, whether it's dancing in your apartment or an online class, exercise class, or something, meditation class with people. But see if you can create new structures for yourself that are nourishing and a little stretchy, and know that, the hopelessness is occurs when you're trying to keep what is shifting in place. You're resisting what is. And the fact is, we're all getting slapped upside the head to be more flexible and to adapt.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean swallow your feelings, but it means probably sharing your feelings in a way that is helpful. That couple that invited me to dinner, it took me saying, yeah, I'm feeling a little lonely, for them to offer the solution of,
Mhm.
hey, then let's have dinner together. Ah, so that honesty with ourselves, and that's what moved me through the experience of it, was being able to be honest, say it, and then look for a solution of that.
You actually put out to the world that you were feeling isolated and you were feeling lonely. And they went, oh, I didn't even think about it. Let's invite Kate for dinner.
Hmm.
You got to create your own reality rather than staying stuck in your room or going for walks with your dog, and that's it. You actually opened up a whole new world in that dinner just by saying what's real for you in this moment.
Hmm.
And I see here Jenny says from Germany, and she said, I now feel more gratitude than before when there was
Yeah.
discontent. Love is the only answer to fear. Beautiful. All right, so we are going to wind down. If people want to get a hold of you, or they want to know where they can find more information about you, where can they do that?
I would go to my website, www.katecrow.com, and yeah, if anyone wants a free 30-minute session just to come up with some solutions for whatever you're feeling, and seeing, how we can find, I will help you find the gold in the dark. That is absolutely. But um, yeah, I just think that it's the way to, like, counterbalance everything that we're going through, is to start to just get much more curious about what it is that we are experiencing, and to look for how it might be a place, how it might actually be helping us versus
Beautiful.
hurting us. Yeah.
All right, and that's Kate Crow, KateCrow. And Kate, if there was one thing you would hope our viewers take away from today, what would that be?
Um, I would love, that, yes, I would like you to know that if you are feeling grief or you are feeling lonely, that is most likely real. And it's what I think collectively we're all feeling something of. And it's more of that last message, which is, how can we find the opportunity how can you find the opportunity for yourself in the shift that we're being asked to make. And I think, it's a big one, and I think it's an important one, and I think our world has needed to change. And it's amazing to me that, this idea that we're all connected, that what happens in China, Germany, Italy, Spain, France, like, it matters. Canada to the United States, like, we're all sharing that information, actually empowers us. And I think I that gives me a lot of hope, this idea that the importance of connection,
Mm.
if that's what comes out of this, real tight squeeze, that's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful. And I'm going to say stay tuned. We've got 9 more weeks of expert videos for you. And with that, Kate, I want to say thank you so much for the time that you've given us, for the strategies that you've shared with us, and for the difference you make in the world.
Thank you, Iris. Thank you for doing this interview series. I think it's great.